the ups and downs you had to go through, and what it takes to make it all the way, right? It's not a perfect path, guys. He can tell you, this is the only path. It's not true. There's just different ways how things goes, and you don't always play for the top team and be the best player, right? You got to go through adversity. You got to go through hard work. You got to go through sacrifices, right? And it's not always cupcake and rainbows, right? It's not easy, guys. It's a lot of work, right, to get to the top, right? And that's what Peter's going to go through today. So we're very fortunate to have him. He's also the Carolina Hurricanes, skills coach. So sometimes you see him on the ice with the injured players or some of the guys that need to get back in their game from an injury or anything like that. So, Peter, floor is yours.
I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate you guys having me here today. So I'll share a little bit about my path growing up, and then through high school, juniors, and then college and pro. And then I'll give you a little bit of the things that I've learned that I think might help you. And then I'll have you guys ask me some questions if there's anything you guys want to know. So, as Jocelyn said, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. It's not a traditional hockey market, even less so when I started there. So every weekend I started in rec league, and then we got into travel, and we had to go every weekend either to Canada or Michigan or Pittsburgh, or we had to travel a lot, which I know you guys have to do as well. So there were some parallels there, but there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into just that. Like, I think my parents, they must have put 750,000 miles on their cars. Like, there's a lot that goes into this, and as we go through this, you guys know, your parents end up doing a lot for you. Your coaches end up doing a lot for you. So before I go any further, let's make sure that you guys thank them. Be grateful for the things they give you. That's the thing, as I get older and older, that's the thing I appreciate the most, is that my parents spend so much time freezing in ice rinks and driving in cars that you can't do it alone. So just make sure you guys thank your parents periodically for it. May not seem like a lot, but they'll appreciate it. But anyways, I digress. So I went through a little bit of AAA program in Cleveland. I remember I wasn't... It's interesting, I ask people why they play hockey. I'm sure all of you have your own reasons. I played just because I love to compete. Like, I played a lot of different sports, but I loved the competition of it. I liked the battle of it. Like, that's actually the thing I miss probably most about the game now, is that I don't get to do it anymore. So it is kind of a privilege to go out there and every day, and you get to battle with each other. You get to joke around. There's nothing like it. There's no work environment like it. So just appreciate that while you're in it. But yeah, so there's a lot of traveling. I don't think, as I was growing up, I wasn't really one of the best players on the team probably until I was 14 or 15 years old. So the biggest thing about hockey is you got to stay with it. Like, it's a process. It's a long process, and you have to be committed to it. You have to be willing to come to the rink every day and work. And that's one of the biggest things I can tell you guys. If I had to pick 3 things only that matter, and I'll repeat them again: work ethic, learning ability, and your ability to adapt as you get older. Because some of you guys might be the best players on your team now, but there will come a time, it may not come until hopefully professionally, but maybe it's college, maybe it's junior, maybe it's whatever. But you have to adapt. That's the biggest issue we see with some of our players now, when in the AHL and even in Carolina. The guys that play in the NHL used to be superstars at lower levels, but they have to change their game. So that's one of the things, as you get older, learn to adapt, learn to play different roles when the coaches ask you to play roles. Play that role to the best of your ability. But anyways, after I got through high school, I ended up playing juniors in the North American League. So some of my friends went and they played prep school hockey. Some of them went to play junior in Canada. So some of you guys, as you get older and older, there are different paths you can take. There's junior teams here. You're just trying to work your way up. So the biggest thing is just get better every day, every week, every year. Because hockey is one of those sports, it's actually interesting. You don't have to make it right out of high school. There are a couple of years afterwards where if hockey is what you really want to do, you can take a couple of years afterwards to pursue it. And there are lots of guys that do that, and they end up getting into college that way. So for you guys in particular, I know that you guys are, I'm sure many of you want to at least play college. That's something to think about. Like, just keep reminding yourselves that this is a process. It's a long journey. Like, it doesn't happen overnight, and there aren't that many Connor McDavids where they know at the age of 14 that they're going to be in the NHL. That's very, very rare. And I'm living proof of that. I was just get better every year, get an opportunity, succeed, and that's where work ethic comes in. Just make sure you come in and you work every day. So after juniors, I ended up going to Boston College. I was there for 4 years, and again, not great the first couple of years. I mean, it was okay. And then junior year better, senior year better. And I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't actually think that I was going to play in the NHL. Like, I wanted to, but I didn't know if it was in the cards. And I had a very good senior year, and I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to sign with the LA Kings. Pretty helpful that they weren't a very good organization at the time, so I didn't have to be great to get a chance. But again, I was given a chance, and I kept working at it, and I kept succeeding. So that's the thing, just keep working at it. And then I'll touch on a little bit my time in LA. I think my 3rd year there, they asked me, I was playing, and then we had guys that were injured, so they were coming back, and they wanted to pull me out of the lineup. And they're like, look, you're playing really well, and we don't want to pull you out. Have you ever played forward before? And I said, no. And that was the first time I'd ever played a game at forward, was in the NHL. So that's why I talk about adaptability. Like, you have to be able to fill the roles that the coaching staff asks of you and what the team needs. And so I went from there. I ended up playing in New Jersey for a few years. I was fortunate enough to play in the Stanley Cup Finals. We lost, but that was probably the coolest experience I had playing hockey, was getting to play at that level in that environment was truly special for me. I played a few years after that, and then I retired in 2016. And that's when I ran into a couple of guys that helped me understand some of the things that I didn't understand about the game. So I know I've worked with a couple of you guys in here. I probably told you this before, but I'll repeat it anyways. It was interesting at the age of 33 to have someone tell me a bunch of things that I didn't know about the game. And I really, really enjoyed that, because I enjoy learning and seeing new things. So it was really cool for me personally, and that kind of rekindled a passion in the game for me. So that brings us kind of to today. Over the next few years, I learned as much as I could about skill development. I learned as much as I could about the game, about coaching, because coaching is very different than playing. Like, you have to be able to communicate better. You have to know more. So be easy on your coaches. It's not the easiest job in the world, trying to corral you guys. But yeah, that kind of brings us up to today. Again, I touched on some of the things that I think that you really need to work on. And honestly, if you take just one thing away from here today, every time you step on the ice, it's an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to get better. I know you guys are young, and sometimes you don't feel like doing it. I was an adult and played professionally, and there were days where we didn't want to do it. But that's one of those things, if you can start to discipline yourselves a little bit and focus on every time you step on, try to learn something new, because as you get older and older, every time you're on the ice, somebody's watching you. Like, if you really want to play the game, somebody's watching you. And that's the one thing that I think some guys, especially younger guys, don't understand. They think they can take nights off. And I do some scouting. We watch. And sometimes we only get a chance to see guys once or twice. If they have an off night, that's not good for them. Like, we don't have other opportunities. There's only a limited number of coaches that can watch. So it's not to put too much pressure on you guys. It's just treat it with respect. Go out there and work. Do your best. It should be it's a game. It's fun, but just work at it every day, every practice. Just work at it. That's honestly the overarching message from me. But yeah, I went through a lot going through the whole ringer. Like, I've seen guys that went to major junior. That's a different path. So if any of you guys do have questions, I'll be around. But if your parents have questions, I'm happy to help. But the game, this is a very, very special game. It teaches you a lot about life. It teaches you a lot about yourself, too. So that's what I love about this game more than anything, is that you learn something new, whether about you or about the game, every day. So that's just kind of my spiel. I'll open it up for some questions if you guys have any.
I have a couple.
All right.
What college did you go to?
I went to Boston College.
Okay.
You got a second one?
Yes. So when you played for LA, right?
Yes.
And when you played for LA, did you play like most of the games, or were you like still like fresh? Like they didn't want to put you down.
That's an excellent question, actually. I should have touched on that. So I played in all the games my first couple of years, and then I was probably the 6th or 7th defenseman on the team, so I didn't play in all the games. And I think my last year in LA, I only played, I think it was 20 games out of 82. So I would sit for long stretches of time and then have to play. And I actually had to do that a little bit in New Jersey, but that actually made me pretty valuable to them because that's actually pretty hard to do. And I don't, there are guys that get very frustrated when you're not playing because it is frustrating. You want to be out there helping your team. But what I found out pretty early on is that if you're whining about not playing, your teammates don't want to be around you. And I loved being part of the team, and I watched other guys. So it's, for me, it ended up being, that was probably one of the most challenging things, but I was pretty good at it, was you come to the rink, you do your work, and you don't complain. Because eventually, you do get a chance, and if you're not prepared, then, or you have a bad attitude about it, then you end up missing out more opportunities. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? That's a good question.
Have you ever broken one of your bones?
I've broken several, yeah. Fingers, ankle, kneecap, shoulder, wrist. I think that's it, though. A couple of toes, maybe?
Did you ever play against Sidney Crosby?
I did, yeah. He's not fun to play against. No, he's, the biggest thing about him, so him and I guess Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby, they kind of highlight two different styles of play. Sidney Crosby is probably one of the best at puck protection, and Connor McDavid is just one of the fastest sheer players in the game. So it was interesting to play against both of them in that sense, where you can see the differences in their games, but they're both really, really difficult to play against.
How old were you when you played AAA?
When I played AAA, I think my first year I was 11 or 12. But I played with guys later that didn't start playing AAA until they were 14. I played with guys that played AAA when they were 10. So that's another thing. There isn't a set path. Honestly, one of the biggest things is if you just keep playing, you give yourself an opportunity to get better. And as long as you love playing the game, or at least like it, that's going to help. But everyone progresses. Some people go through growth spurts early. Some people, it's later. So if you stay with it and you keep working at it, you give yourself a chance, right?
When did you retire?
2016, so 5 years ago.
What was your daily schedule when you were in the NHL?
So non-game days, we would usually have a practice. Come to the rink. It's practice usually at 10. You're there maybe at 8, 8:30. Warm up. Sometimes we do a workout before. Sometimes we do it after. But then we go on the ice probably for somewhere between 45 minutes, hour and a half, depending on the day. Then we'd stay on a little bit longer to do kind of skill and position specific things. And then afterwards, if we didn't work out before, we worked out, and then we'd do, depends on if guys were banged up, you'd have to either get treatments or therapy, and then you can do hot tub, cold tub, that kind of stuff. But usually at the rink for about 3 hours a day. It's, as I step away from it, there really isn't, like on non-game days, there's not that much time where you're at the rink. So you really kind of have to focus on what you're doing while you're there, because you get time away, because you start to really, the season's very long. 82 games is a lot of games. And you really start to cherish the rest, and rest becomes very, very important. It's important for you guys. Even at this age, like, you guys got to be getting sleep. I mean, that really helps. Game day, wake up, 10:30 pregame skate at home. We go skate, and then we go back to the hotel. We have a pregame meal. Then we take a nap, something I miss very much now. And then after the nap, we go to the rink probably about 2.5 hours, 2 hours before the game. And then that's all just preparation, getting ready, getting sticks ready, getting warmed up, going over video meetings. And then you play the game, and then afterwards it's a workout. It's a long, game days were long days, but they were fun.
I have two questions. So, one is, like, on the Carolina Hurricanes,
Surprising player. I would actually say Teuvo Teravainen is one of those guys that he is so incredibly skilled. I was kind of shocked at how skilled he was, because if you're not around it every day, if you're not watching every day, I didn't really appreciate it. But when you step on the ice with him and you see some of the things he can do, he's incredible. He's just an incredibly talented individual. Turbo, and then Jacob Slavin, I think, is underrated. I think he probably has the best hand-eye coordination possibly in the league. But they're incredible athletes. Like, I look at the game, it's progressed a long time since, it's only been 5 years, and the skill level has gone up quite a bit, and the speed of the game has gone up. So it's been interesting to watch.
And then, did you ever have like any injuries in the NHL that caused you to be out for like a long majority of the season?
Nothing really serious. Just a broken ankle was probably 5 weeks maybe. No, I was very fortunate. Comes with not playing all the games.
What's like some of the major challenges from playing from like college hockey, like the NHL?
So college hockey's interesting because you have to go to classes. Like that was, I'll tell you a story. My first semester, I think I got like a 2.6 or something like that, and I always did pretty well in school. My parents called me and they're like, "That's never going to happen again." I was like, okay. I didn't take it probably as seriously as I should have, and that's one of the things I learned probably the wrong way, is that you have to manage your time a little bit better. You guys are in school now, so you're kind of used to it, and even in high school I was, but when you get a little bit of freedom to kind of get away from that, you have to maintain that discipline to be able to keep up your grades and keep up with it. But time management's a huge thing in college just because you have to go to classes. The difference between the two games is that every level, you guys know this, is that as you get older and older, the game happens faster and faster. And that's the biggest jump, is how quickly everything moves. Even the difference between the AHL and the NHL, that's almost always the biggest thing. It's not that the players are much physically faster, it's that things happen much faster. And the AHL, in comparison, is maybe a little scrambly, like where some guys aren't in the right place. In the NHL, they're always in the right place. And, I mean, very rarely are they out of, and when they are, it ends up as a goal against. So there's very little room for error, and the game moves much faster. Passes happen faster. Guys don't hang on to the puck for that long. That's the biggest thing. So as you get older and older, that ends up being probably the biggest differentiator. Oh, we already got you.
How much sleep do you recommend, like, to get at our age?
I don't know, the parents want me to answer that one? 12? 12? No, I mean, it's different for everyone. I can't give you a hard and fast answer. I would imagine that at least 8, but probably 9, 10. Like I know I have young kids too, and we're on them about when they go to bed. What I do know is that a lot of people have phones and tablets, and they kind of stay up on those later and later. It's not good. Like 10 to 11, I mean, that should be enough. I don't know, though, you probably want to consult a doctor about that.
What juniors did you play for, and like how did you get there?
I played for the Cleveland Barons. They were in the North American League. It was fortunate I played in the organization. The youth organization was created while I was coming up. So we ended up using it as a feeder. So I played for the Cleveland Barons all the way up through, I don't know if it's called this, is it midget AAA or U18? And then I ended up playing for the junior team that was in Cleveland. So I was fortunate enough to have that team there. But yeah, every year, same organization. I was pretty fortunate that way. I know a lot, well, some of you may have already left home, but nowadays I see a lot of younger players leaving home earlier and earlier. It's not a bad thing necessarily. It would be nice, I think, if you guys could stay closer to home longer, but unfortunately we live in North Carolina, and sometimes that's not in the cards. So that's where I think a lot of you guys, you'll figure this out as you go, but again, there's no one right path. You got to do what's right for you, what's right for your family, and that kind of thing. So.
How about you, just
Say that one more time, sorry.
How would you teach your defenseman to defend the Anaheim goal? When they flip it over to the net?
I don't know. That wasn't a problem when I played. You have to get the guy's stick in front, which is hard to say, but you watch how guys defend the Michigan now. That wasn't really a thing. Like, Svech wouldn't have pulled it off twice if people knew how to defend it, right? I think that's what's interesting about these younger players is that they're getting more and more creative and they're capable of doing more and more things, which makes it harder to defend. So I don't know. That's a good question. I think you got to go get his stick up, the guy in front, and then hope it doesn't bank off the goalie's head.
What is the favorite goal that you scored?
My favorite goal that I scored? It's a good question. I didn't score a lot of big goals. I scored in the Bean Pot in college, which is a tournament in Boston. That's a really big deal for people in Boston. I wasn't aware of it until I got there, but it's an in-season tournament between BC, Boston University, Northeastern, and Harvard. But scored a goal in that. I don't know. That's a good question. Probably my first NHL goal. That's a good one. I think probably in juniors, so I probably was good enough to play on the junior team my sophomore year in high school, and for some reason, they didn't take me. So that was kind of a setback for me. I wouldn't say it was even a setback. It kind of motivated me because, and I don't know, this is the way I was kind of wired. I always assumed if I didn't get what I wanted that I had done something wrong. So I generally blame myself first, and that it's not necessarily a good thing. There are downsides to that, but it's helpful in hockey because you always look internally and say, what can I do better? And that was one of the things for me. It kind of motivated me. What can I do better? A second one was probably in my second year pro. I had been up in the NHL for 25 games, and then I got sent back down to play playoffs in the AHL. And this is a lesson to some of you guys so I went down and I thought the game was going to be a little easier because it is a little, but it's not. So it's an odd thing, but I played terribly. I tried to do too much. I tried to do some of it myself. It was one of the situations for me as I put more and more on myself, the worse and worse I played. And I think that's what's unbelievable about hockey is that it's a true team sport. It's impossible for one guy to take over a game or even really dominate games for the most part. But that for me is do your job and try not to do somebody else's job and just make sure that you're doing what's necessary to help the team, not trying to do too much. That was hard for me because I didn't play very well. So I had to kind of sit on that for a whole summer after we got eliminated. But it was a good lesson in the long run. It sucked in the process, though.
When you were a kid, what was your favorite hockey team?
I grew up liking the Chicago Blackhawks because I loved their emblem. I loved the uniforms, and I was a big Jeremy Roenick fan. So that's who I rooted for. But I kind of watched everybody. My uncle had season tickets to the Buffalo Sabres, so every once in a while I would drive up to see him and go do that. We'd go to Pittsburgh games occasionally. So you guys are fortunate you have an NHL team in the city.
What would you tell your younger self, to work on,
That's a really good question. I would probably tell myself to be a little easier on myself. Some people need to be a little harder. Some people need a kick in the pants. Some people need a pat on the back. I think, so my parents actually had me with a skating coach when I was very young. I went once a week, probably until I was 16. That was incredibly helpful. I wish I had taken more time to focus while I was practicing. A lot of times I would work like it was a race to get it done, rather than focusing on what I was actually doing. I would just get it done and then not think about it. And that, the more you think about it when you're younger, the more you understand about your game and what you're supposed to be doing, and the more deliberate and focused you are in your practice, the easier it is to make it a habit And then once it's a habit, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's just there. You just do it. It's part of who you are, part of your makeup. So a lot of the things for younger players is just building good habits, whether it's eating, whether it's sleeping, practice habits. Those things will carry you a very long way. So I think better practice habits and better training habits would probably be the two things that I would tell my younger self. It's a really good question.
Were you ever in a fight with yourself?
Not in the NHL, no. In juniors I was, though. It didn't go well. I'm not very good at it. That's what I found out. What's that? No, I did not. Go ahead. No.
What skills should you have worked on more when you realized you were in
Shooting and skating, honestly. The game's so fast now. If you can't skate well, it's really difficult to keep up. You'd have to be... So the way we look at it, if you can split it into, I guess, 4 categories. There's skating, stick handling, passing, shooting, and the last one is hockey sense, the 5th one. Hockey sense is kind of nebulous. It's just kind of your game intelligence, and that can make up for skill deficiencies, but it's hard to teach. We can teach tactics and we can teach things like that, but some of it is based on how well you can perceive the game, how fast you can process it, and a lot of that's cognitive. So the coaches will help you with a lot of that stuff growing up, but if you can't skate and keep up, that's tough. And at the end of the day, the game's about scoring goals. So the better, more accurate shot you have, the more likely it is that when you do shoot, it's going to go in. But the other thing I see in a lot of younger kids is that passing is kind of, it doesn't get worked on enough. And good hard passes they're at a premium at the higher levels. Passes are on the tape and they're crisp. They're like shots. So that's where, I guess, unfortunately, I gave you 4 answers, but skating, shooting, passing are probably the most important. I know a lot of people like dangling around things. That has its place, but the other 3 are pretty important.
If you could give one piece of advice to younger players, what would it be?
To younger players, other than have fun, because this is a game, it would be, when you step on the ice, just be focused. Like, if you're focused on what you're doing, you will learn it faster and you'll retain it longer. Like, it's mindless repetitions, and I've been there. I've done thousands of them. You're actually, you're wasting time. Like, just focus on what you're doing and make sure that you're engaged mentally. Because I know we all sit through school some days and you don't want to be there, I get it. But that's the biggest thing. The more often you're focused, the better off you'll be in the long haul.
Do you think that goals like the weird moves like the stretch and the zebras, do you think those will be like used in the future a lot? But because after people see them, they know that they're coming. You can easily stop them. Do you think that could be part of the future in the
Well, yeah, I mean, we know how to defend it. The difference will probably be how and when it's used. I mean, you see guys now that they can do it in full motion. They don't have to stop. Like, that's probably the next evolution. Like, you see Marty Nachas, fake shot, comes around and wrap around. There's no reason why he couldn't come around the other side, pick it up, and all in one motion go to the other side with it. So my guess is that you'll probably see it happen faster, and because you're right, if he's just standing there, it's easy to defend. So it'll probably just evolve into doing it in motion. Or if maybe the defender's out of position, you'll see a guy pull it off. But it's not a high percentage play right now. The way I look at it is that you're not going to score that many goals doing that. So the amount of time it takes you to get it down and do it really well is probably not worth it. You can probably put that effort into something else, like improving the accuracy of your snapshot or wrist shot, and get a higher benefit over the long haul. That would be my advice. It's a nice tool to have, but again, I don't know how often it's going to pay off for you.
I have a question. What motivated you to decide to go to college rather than follow the other path?
Well,
Or you that you might not get to your end level of being a pro?
It didn't actually, because I didn't know if I was going to play in the NHL. So I chose the college route because you can do something with a college degree. You can't do anything with a major junior resume unless you get into coaching. Like that, it's something that I didn't know that I wanted, I didn't know I wanted to be a coach. And I mean, my older brother went to college, he played in college. Education was important to my parents. I mean, I think it was something that I hadn't really ever thought of. I thought college was always important for me, and I'm glad I went. It was an unbelievable experience, and I was really happy with it. But for some kids, that's not their path, and that's okay. It's just you got to figure out what works for you, and that was the best option for me. And I mean, my parents obviously were happy about it, but I think it ended up working out for me better. It's because you get 4 years there. So I went to college at 18. I was done at 22. In major junior, I don't know, I think you're done at 20 or 21. Yeah, so you get 2 extra years to develop, which I needed. And that's another benefit of it. But, if you're a top player and you can play in major junior, there's nothing wrong with getting to the pros sooner. What you're finding now is that a lot of kids are leaving college early anyways. They're there for a year or 2 and they're gone. Some of them will go back and get their degree. I think Jack Drury, plays for our Chicago team. He went to Harvard. I think he's finishing up his degree. So it was just the right decision for me, but not for everyone, I guess.
Hockey-wise, that level, how do you compare it from the league you talked about, when you're 20, compared to the level of college hockey?
Is he talking about juniors or major? So I think most of the differences every year is the top line is usually very, very good. So the difference is that the difference between the top line and the bottom line shrinks at every level. So there are guys that play on the fourth line or third pair that are really good in the NHL. They're less good in college, they're less good in junior, so the discrepancy between the best players and the players still developing is wider at the younger ages, right? So it just starts to shrink until you get to the NHL where, I mean, we use guys that are on our third line on the first line sometimes. I mean, not every team can do that. We're fortunate we have a lot of talent, but there isn't a lot of difference in between top lines and bottom lines.
What was the first team you ever played against in the NHL?
The first team in the AHL? NHL. My first game was in San Jose. So we were in Norfolk with Manchester was the AHL team I was playing with, and they told me the night before that I was going to fly out. So this was 2 days before the game. So they told me, I woke up, we had a pregame skate, went to the airport, and it was supposed to be a one connection flight. Something happened, and I ended up taking 3 flights and getting into San Jose from Virginia. We landed at 2 a.m. This is the day of the game now. I got to my room and I opened the door and I didn't know this, but there was a guy in there already who's one of the roommates. He was our fighter. He's 6'4", 260, and he had a sleep mask on and he snapped up who's there? And I was like, this has been quite a day. So I went to the rink the next day and my equipment didn't make it. So I had to wear a bunch of extra equipment for pregame skate, so that was entertaining. My equipment made it for the game, but I played in San Jose, and I actually had an assist that game. So it was an interesting day. It was actually probably good. I didn't have to worry about a lot. So much had happened. You just play. So.
Did you have any offers besides Boston College and the other offers?
I did, yeah. I had several offers. It came down to Miami, which is where my brother went, BC and BU. I looked at Harvard actually, but the head coach at the time was my brother's coach in college, and that was not a good experience. So, what's that? No, he was there after Mark Mazzolini. Yeah, but yeah, I ended up choosing Boston College. It was just the best mix of education and hockey, and it was in. I didn't want to stay in state. I wanted to go somewhere else, do something different.
As you know, off-ice working out is important for a hockey player. When did you really start emphasis on that growing up?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't in the greatest shape in probably 6th grade, and my uncle, he worked at the school I went to, and he was the wrestling coach. So he and I started working out a lot. Like he's like, look, we're going to do push-ups, like calisthenics, just basic body weight stuff. So I did that, probably started in 6th grade. But that's stuff you can do at any age, right? Like you don't need weights at younger ages. Obviously, when you get older, it makes sense. But I mean, I don't know if you guys have people here that help them with that kind of stuff, but you can get into it. Like we don't use a ton of, like we don't put 300 pounds on the bar with our guys. Like we have pretty good equipment, but that can cause a lot of wear and tear on your body. Like I had to do Olympic lifts and stuff like that in college, and you don't often put weight above your head on the ice, so it should be kind of sport specific, but a lot of it has to do with having good functional movement patterns, and good range of motion, that kind of stuff, so which you can do at any age. So I looked up to my brother. He's 7 years older than me, and he played as long as I was alive, so I was fortunate where I got to learn from his mistakes. He's probably a better player than I was physically, but he struggled with the mental side of the game, processing it, and then he at times would kind of get wrapped up in what the coach was thinking or what other people were thinking, and I mean that's something as a player you can't do. You got to kind of focus on what you're doing, and then the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. But yeah, I looked up to my brother, still do.
What team did you want to make when you were when you got in the draft? What team?
I would have been happy to get drafted, but I wasn't. Yeah, no, I wasn't really on anybody's radar. I think I kind of got fortunate. I went to a select festival one year. They took a select team from that festival, and the assistant coach from Boston College was one of the coaches on that team. And so I got to spend a week with him. He got to spend a week with me, and it was it was a good fit. I think that he got to know how I am as a person, as a player. He got to watch me practice, which I don't think college coaches get to do a lot. So I think that was it was an opportunity for me, but I wasn't drafted. I wasn't high on anybody's list. So I'm a testament to constant incremental improvement every year.
Who's the best teammate you play with?
Talent or teammate?
Talent.
Okay. Probably Andrzej Kopitar. He's scary good. He doesn't look like he's doing a lot, but he's actually pretty fast. He's got a great shot, and he's one of those guys that kind of knows what's going on around him, like on all sides. He's super talented. Best teammate was Matt Green. Heart and soul guy, block shots with his face, and just a very good human being.
What age did you start playing hockey?
I started at 6 or 7, organized hockey. I started skating at 5. We had a pond in our backyard that it would freeze over, so it's tough to do down here. But yeah, it wasn't very good ice though.
Where did you live when you were that age?
I lived just outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
Did you say it was easier or harder managing in school during college or high school? Because usually in high school, if you're traveling all the time, it gets pretty hard to keep it organized.
That's a good question. It was probably easier in college because our travel schedule at Boston College was not bad. Like we had one 4-hour bus trip, And then we had maybe twice a year where we'd fly to a tournament. Everything else was a day trip. The difference is the freedom you get. Like, that's why when you're at home with your parents, they can remind you, are you doing your homework? Are you doing this kind of thing? It's when you go to college, you're now on your own for the first time, or unless you go to prep school, in which case some kids may go to prep school here, and then you'll probably already have that dialed in by the time you get to college. I didn't. But it was hard in high school because we had long bus trips. You had to do homework on the bus sometimes. But I was fortunate. I had a pretty good deal at the school I went to. They understood my situation, so teachers were fairly lenient, but you had to get stuff done early. So college, it's rarely that way. I would say it was probably harder in high school, actually. Go ahead.
Do you guys have to pay for your plane rides? Or are they like
At what level?
NHL?
NHL? No, we don't pay for that stuff. It was nice. We got to ride in planes that had first class seats in the whole way through. They bring food to you and everything. It's the way to travel if you can do it.
What was your pregame ritual?
That is. So when I got to the rink, I would I tape my stick the same way every time. I would get everything in order. I had specific drinks I'd have a coffee, and then I'd have. I had cramping issues, so I had put gator lights and stuff. I get that all set up, and then before I got ready, I would take 10 minutes, and I would go outside in a hallway or something. I would sit with my eyes closed and my fingers in my ears and just visualize the game. So I had a routine where it would be, these are the 5 things I wanted to do well, and then I would visualize myself doing those things well. I think if you talk to most guys, most guys at the NHL level have a similar routine where they use visualization a lot, and there's science to back it up. It's helpful.
You ever pulled a picture off?
No, I haven't. I would never have thought to do that.
What was your like pregame meal?
For night games, it was pasta, chicken. It was plain pasta, plain chicken, and then a salad. Pretty bland. And then I'd have banana and fruit right before the game.
What would you do during like the off season or the summer?
Well, work out most of the time. Skate and work out. Playing pro, well, once I had kids, I'd play with my kids, but we golfed. I used to golf a lot. I don't do that much anymore because I don't have time for it. But yeah, training takes up the first half of my day. So you wake up, go to the rink, work out, skate or run, get some therapy, and then maybe the afternoon you have free. So.
How old were you when you played games?
I played a few games at 16, but 17 and 18.
Have you ever been scored on by like the coach around when the dots are
No. I was on SportsCenter for getting walked by Bobby Ryan, though. He did a spinorama and scored a nice goal against me. That made it onto the SportsCenter top 10.
hammered by Alex Ovechkin?
Not by him. I got crushed by Dustin Byfuglien, though. He's a big fella.
Have you ever crushed like a famous player?
I don't think so. I don't think I got anybody famous that good.
Have you been knocked out?
Yes, I have several times. Oddly enough, most of it happened. So a lot has changed since I was your age. My first concussion, I was knocked unconscious and played later in that game. Yeah. So we know now that that's a really bad idea. I was fortunate I did not get another one that game. But yeah, most of them happened actually in youth hockey. Some of it's because teenage boys are pretty aggressive, and some of it is that people don't know how to take a hit. for me, sometimes it was like, you can't see it because of my beard, but I have scars all over my chin. The cage would come up and hit my chin, so I'd get a concussion that way too. So I think I ended up with 4 or 5. I didn't have one professionally, but it's something that thankfully you guys don't have to worry about as much. I'm trying to get some of that out of the game.
Have you ever extremely bodied someone?
I did in college, yeah. A couple of times when we played BU, it got pretty chippy, but not professionally. I'm not a very big guy, so I can't run people over. And when I played, the game was just starting to change towards smaller players. So there were too many guys that were too big and too strong. Like, I couldn't do that.
How much more demanding was playoff hockey?
That's a really good question, and the answer is shockingly a lot. Like, after having played for a few years in the NHL, I didn't really expect it to be that different, and it is. It's so much more physically demanding, and I can't tell you exactly why. My suspicion is that during the regular season, you don't get everybody's 100% every shift because it's such a long season. But the teams are obviously better because they're in the playoffs, and it matters so much more that it does go up another level, and it's a different game. It's really, really demanding.
Were concussions worse when you were a kid and now?
I mean, they were worse then. There were more of them. I think that they went undiagnosed. That's a problem. The issue is that now everyone skates faster. So you can still get bad concussions. There are sometimes accidents happen. People aren't looking, you can run into them, but it's not going to be they've done a very good job of punishing intentional hits to the head. They can probably do more at the pro level. My suspicion is that they won't, but they've done a fairly decent job of getting rid of the really bad ones.
Do you ever get any concussions from like things that were almost like related to hockey or not, but like it was kind of almost dumb how it happened?
You mean outside the rink?
Or like even on the actual, like someone did something just like stupid and it wasn't even like, not even like a hit, just like something stupid, you fell or someone tripped you.
No, every time it was a hit.
Last question, so we gotta go back to school.
All right, go ahead. You got it.
Cut by a blade?
Say that again?
Have you ever been cut by a hockey blade?
I don't think so. I made it through my whole career without getting cut by a skate blade. All right, last one. We got my favorite part of the game. Are you asking what my favorite skill is, or my favorite part of the game is being with teammates? Like coming to the rink, like that was the best part about being a professional hockey player, was you'd come to the rink. Your job was to joke around and play a game. Like, we took it seriously when we practiced, but you chirp each other about, well, maybe you missed a pass, stuff like that, but that was fun for me. That was the most fun. And that's what I miss most until I got back into it with these guys. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck, everybody. I'm around the rink sometimes, so don't be afraid to come up and ask questions if you have any, okay? That was excellent. Thank you.